Alright, this is just a super fast tutorial to show you how to do the basic demon face effect. Andrew Kramer was the first person that I saw doing this, and the demon face was done all over YouTube. It's a really neat effect. It can turn your friend's face without any makeup or anything into a scary looking demon for a few frames. The only thing with the Andrew Kramer, which I encourage you to check out his video, with his method is he uses After Effects, he uses motion tracking, a lot of advanced techniques. So this is a super simplified one, which actually I think rivals some of the best demon faces I've seen on the internet. So I'll see if you agree. You can do this with any editing software. You don't need After Effects. Anything where you can generate a mask, so some of the pro versions of the software are required. Just about everybody's got those. I'm just using Vegas 11, and I think this came out really cool. So let's take a look at a demon face. One, he's a teenager. Oh, see, there's no difference. Perfect. Okay, now here's that shot broken down frame by frame. You can see the transition here as I click through. It's very subtle. First we have Mackenzie's face there going a dark, sort of a pale. We have bumps appearing on his face, lines. We see a lot of contrast, a shadow under the top of his hair there that's shadowing his face. Flame erupts in front of him. There's some smoke in there as well that I put in, which actually is really hard to see in this particular take. And then as his smile returns and we click ahead here, the flames dissipate. And as I look around, the gag is complete as Mackenzie has fully recovered. So it's kind of a neat effect in that it fades in and it fades out just like that. Okay, we're going to do this as a super fast tutorial, just as I promised. If we zip over here to File, and we go ahead and we will open up a shot of our main clip. We wind up placing that on the timeline. Now this is a clip of Mackenzie and I in the tree fort, and at one point I simply had Mackenzie, as we zipped along here, make a scary face. Something every kid is an expert at doing. Well, there he is with his scary face for just a few frames. I'm not sure if it's scary or funny, but by the time we're done with it, I think it's going to be more scary than funny. The critical things here are this is a 2D effect. It's not a 3D effect. So you're going to want to make sure that your actor's face is square on with the camera. Now, one of the kind of cool things about doing this effect in a very simplified way, rather than using motion tracking as the more sophisticated programs do, is that you actually will be able to move the mask that we're about to generate for our actor, even if they turn their head to the side. And it really doesn't take all that much work. I know there's a lot of people that are very cool and very hot on animation and automation, but in this case we're going to do it the old-fashioned way, which is super simple and works with any software. So the first thing we need to do is, since we're going to change his face, let's go ahead and we will make a copy here of what we have on the timeline. So there's our copy. We'll place that directly below the original shot. So the cool thing here is if we make a mask on our upper copy, pretty typical work you've probably done before, which allows footage from the lower clip to come through, to shine through, then any modifications we make to the lower clip will appear in any masked region of the upper clip. Now, if that sounds complicated at all, it really, really isn't. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to head to our Event Pan and Crop. Pretty much every piece of software is going to have that. It might have a different name to it. And we're going to mask out Mackenzie's face. So we'll zip along here, the timeline, and we'll find that moment when Mackenzie ceases to be Mackenzie and becomes our demon face character. So the great acting skills here. I think all my kids are going to be pretty used to being in front of the camera, pretty camera savvy. So here's the point at which that effect is going to start. So we'll select that keyframe on the timeline, and we'll go ahead and tell the computer that's where the effect is going to start. Now we're going to generate a mask here, which is super easy to do. You'll just use your mask pen tool. Now I'm going to do a really simple mask here. I'm not going to be overly careful about it because I don't want to take that kind of time in the video. I know you just want to get the gist of how it's done. So rather than bending these lines around and showing my lack of prowess with the pen tool, that I always have to jitter around and goof with it, we'll just go ahead and we'll select a mask in the simplest of ways by making a lot of points here. Go up over his eyebrow and around his face. So his face is masked off. Now in hindsight, I also realized I should have masked his arms as well when I did that original video shot, because we didn't want to have just a demon face. We wanted to have a demon kid, right? So once our mask is selected, you don't want to have your mask be exactly on your actor, because that requires a lot of work. So we'll come up here to feather, which actually has some additional benefits that you'll notice when you play with this. We'll say feather out, and we'll go ahead and we'll feather outward from this mask just a bit so our mask isn't right exactly on our subject. So you see the mask is now covering a broader area and a smoother area, which is going to look a lot more natural as the transition starts. So a simple mask and just feather it out a bit. Now we are set. Let's go ahead and switch that mask to negative, which will allow us to see just what's on the bottom timeline through the area of the mask. Okay. So now coming back to our shot here, this is going to be fairly interesting. What we're seeing as Mackenzie's face is the lower timeline, and the rest of the scene is the upper timeline on identical timelines. So let's go ahead. I may need to move this keyframe ahead a little bit to where he's making his motion. So let's do that. And my computer is lagging just a little bit. I probably should set my preview to a lower level. So there's his scary demon face. Now if I were to pull this lower timeline out just to show you what I'm talking about, there you can see that what we're seeing is the lower timeline, which is now dark because there's nothing there. It's kind of funny. You can do a lot of goofy things. So if I slide this timeline through, watch this. This is moderately entertaining. I can move Mackenzie's face around. You can use this same effect with the demon face effect to actually do stretches using a deform tool, which we've got also here in Vegas, and I'm sure most editing software has that as well. So now that they're lined up, we're able to modify Mackenzie's face at will by simply modifying the lower timeline. So we'll go to our video effects here, and the first thing that I noticed that almost all these demon effect shots had is that the character's face would go, you'd lose all the color from it. So we're going to desaturate the color down to nothing. Probably the easiest way to do that is to go over to Sony black and white here. So we'll say OK, and there you go. Mackenzie's face is in black and white, and we've already got a good start there for a demon face effect. The next effect that I added, and keep in mind there's such a plethora of effects here, anything from being able to deform the face, to adding grain to the face, rays from the face, a blur on the face. There's just so many fun, cool things you can do, but I'm just going to, for the sake of a short video, I'm just going to go over the specific thing that I did to accomplish the demon face that you saw. So coming back to this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add contrast. So Sony brightness and contrast ought to do this. And if we add a little bit of contrast, I just noticed it just really adds, there we go, to the sharpness of that demon face effect. The next thing that I added, which I thought was really kind of cool, is a bump map. Now that feature, I don't know if all editing software has that feature, but you're going to have something similar to it for sure. And by boosting, there we go, boy, our intensity's gone all out on that. By boosting or lessening the intensity, we can wind up with like a very rutted looking face. And as you can see, our mask, there we go. Oh my gosh. And we've overdone it just a bit there, but by carefully adjusting your intensity, as you can see, you can make a very rutted, very spooky, demonic face. And because we have total control over everything that happens on that lower timeline, you can darken this face, you can lighten this face, any of the natural type of color correction tools you can use to get your demon face. So there's only two other things you need to know to get this all to work into your shot, just like it did in the video. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want those effects to come in slowly. So by selecting the effect that you want to come in slowly, you will get a section of the timeline here. By clicking the little clock type tool on any of these effects, you'll be able to do this. And this length from one side to the other is the length of the shot. So by inserting a keyframe, by just clicking, I can now decide at what point in my shot I want this effect to take place, and it will slowly transition from no effect to the effect taking place as we move along the timeline. There's one last thing that you're going to want to do, and that will be up on your primary timeline here. You'll want to go a keyframe at a time, and as your actor moves, you're going to want to follow him with the mask. So by selecting the mask and moving it to fit his face, we're able to create a keyframe for every motion of the actor's face because we've done the, and you don't have to do much as you can tell, because we've done that feather effect. It really doesn't get off his face very much, but add a little care by moving this as the actor's face moves around, and it really doesn't take long to track even 10 or 15 seconds of a shot manually. So motion tracking would be cool, but this really doesn't take all that long. And let's zip back to the effect and we'll have one more quick look. And I hope you have a lot of luck with this and enjoy the new simplified demon face effect.